Go for it, Pat.
Hi, thanks everyone for coming. Jody Williams and I have been, my name is Pat Wise Straley. I'm from the Philadelphia metropolitan area. Been with Keller Williams for about 9 years and been in the real estate industry for 38 years. So Jody and I met about a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years ago. And 3 years ago, time flies. And we were talking about the transition and the evolution that a real estate agent takes in their career. And as we and everyone in their career has different goals and what they want to do. So that's who I am. Jody, would you like to tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jody Williams from Keller Williams in Minnesota. No, there's a lot of Minnesota in the house. Whoops. Sorry, I'm going to change that back. But anyway,
That is adorable.
and we're really excited. We've been doing these workshops. So this is, I think, the fourth one, maybe, or fifth one, maybe. And I'm really happy today that we have solo agents telling their story, because I think there are so many solo agents like me, like Kris and Whitney, who'll be speaking. Well, Pat's on a team, so we talked with Pat and Gary Gentry and Wendy Papasan and about how to bring a team in if you're retiring your team, right, or from your team. But there are a ton of solo agents who, are headed toward retirement. And I don't have a book of business to sell, but I do have ongoing business to refer, I think, right? I mean, not everybody can buy a book of business. So anyway, so we're going to jump right in. We have a series of questions we're going to ask our guests today. And then you can throw questions in the chat. And Pat's going to monitor that. We'll certainly leave a little bit of time at the end for questions and promise to end by 3. So, I'm sorry. So we have some folks from other parts of the U.S. on this call. So without further ado, we have Kris Pearson and Whitney Kieffer here from Katy Bean and Company. And Katy's here too. Wave, Katy. Say hello if you see. Katy's been on a call with us too. And Kris and Whitney are both solo agents that moved into the team as part of their plan for retirement. So can you each introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what your business was like as a solo agent, and volume, units, that sort of thing. So Kris, you want to start?
Sure. I've been in business since 2010, and the last 4 years or so did roughly 4.5.
Sorry, what was the first part?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, okay.
4.5, 4.8 million, 15 to 21 transactions a year, depending upon the year.
Okay.
So that was my.
Oh, okay.
Could I ask everyone to mute, please?
Yeah, print it out and send around the file.
Okay.
Because I think I've.
Okay, so I'm going to mute everyone. And then if I could ask Kris to unmute.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
So anyway, that's what I did about the last 4 or 5 years before joining Katy's team.
Whitney, how about you? Unmute yourself first.
I actually met Kris in the second set of training
back in 2010. So I've been doing real estate as long in Minnesota as she has, but I had a career before that in Alaska where I sold for about 17 years. Also as a sole agent, because in the late 70s and early 80s, Teams and all of the wonderful social media we had was a dream. My volume has been about the same here. It's between 4.5 and just over 5, and averaging like 20 units a year. And then that started to change because of taking the move.
Yeah, that's great. So 2 solo agents with about 15 to 20 transactions a year, 4 to 5 million before they moved into retirement. What are you doing now in terms of volume and transactions?
I'm doing, my goal has been 10 transactions a year for the last couple of years, and last year I met that, so.
10. Okay.
And I've
Whit?
been doing 6 to 10. I wanted to increase it with Katy, and I talked about that for this year to go up more. I think last year was 6, so I would like to do 10 this year. I
Okay.
enjoy using the money to have fun with it.
Right. So we were talking yesterday with these folks, and Whitney was saying there's one more trip she had to do. Needed to do a little more D2, you know, to get that to make that happen. Anyway, so it's been a few years since like 2021 that you both moved out or moved on to Katy's team. Is that about right?
Yes.
You too, Kris? Okay, cool. So, what did you do to prepare for the transition?
I think to Pat's point earlier, is I started thinking about this during COVID and where I wanted to go moving forward, all that kind of stuff. And ended up taking like a 20-day road trip because I wasn't going to get on an airplane. And came back with, okay, and I've been blessed to have a 30-year career with Northwest Delta Airlines. So I still have free airfare anywhere in the world for the rest of my life. And I sat down and went, what am I doing? Yeah, I'm 65 years old. I have this ability to travel, being a full-time agent, and you all know what that entails, answering phones, texts, all that kind of stuff. This is not what I want to do at this point in my life. So I sat down, kind of did some numbers, had a long talk with my financial advisor, my tax person, and I just decided I did not want to do real estate full time. And for me, real estate was not fulfilling anymore. What's fulfilling for me, which we can talk about later, is serving my senior and elderly clients. And joining Katy's team gave me the ability to do that. So in and of itself, a certain amount of money, a certain amount of transactions, that was no longer, on my priority list. I had a passion to do some other things and stuff outside of the senior work as well. So then I had talked to Whitney and she had joined Katy's team. I had a conversation with Katy and it was, to me, a no-brainer. This was the team I wanted to join. I wanted to work with Katy, learn from her, grow with her personally and professionally. And she's given me the ability to focus on that senior market, for which I'm thankful.
So Kris, you told us oh, I'm sorry.
Go, Pat. Go.
Okay, Kris, you told us about a listing appointment that you went on with Katy and in which she solidified your choice. Would you like to share that with us today?
Sure. So Katy and I were on an appointment with a client that had fallen the night before, and she was in her bed. And we met her daughter, brought us up and into her bedroom, and she needed to sell her townhome and moved to senior living for a variety of reasons. And she was very shut down. She didn't really want to talk. And the daughter and I said a few things. I don't remember the whole conversation, but I think it was like after 15 minutes, Katy, who'd been sitting in the background and quiet, said something profound, which was basically, what concerns you about making this move? Or why are you afraid of moving? And all of a sudden, Dorothy opened up and talked for the rest of the, time. But we couldn't get her to come out of her shell until Katy, who'd been silent for 15 minutes, posed that one question.
It's great. It's great. So making the match with the right person is really important. Maybe we can say a little more about that in a minute. But Whitney, how did you prepare?
I started out wanting to do a little more traveling, but at the same time, I wasn't thinking about being ready to retire. And so I did a test. I found support and help in the office. And I went to France for 3 weeks and didn't check email and didn't check my phone. And I thought, this is a way for me to see if I can find the support and the help that I trust and need. And I was using a transaction coordinator and working to find assistants or licensed agents that could help me. So I had started to do a little bit of legwork that way, but the transition came quickly from the standpoint that I moved in April to Wisconsin. So I needed to do something that I thought at least could continue the work I was doing with somebody who had the integrity and the business mindset and the care for my clients. And I interviewed a couple of different teams and chose to work with Katy.
Very good. And there's something about preparation that we've talked about in other calls too. Like getting your database together, that sort of thing. I mean, would you say you were all in tip-top shape? I mean, I think that's a big fear of folks, right? That, oh, my business is a little, loosey-goosey.
Go ahead. I didn't know somebody just said something. My database was okay. I'm not a paperwork person. I'm a salesman, like a lot of you. And my business came from past clients and me faithfully calling every quarter my DTD2 people. But at the same time, in my database, I had farm people that I knew their name and their address. And I didn't have emails or phone numbers. So that to me didn't matter because they would still get the mailings, the paper mailings that the company that Katy was doing for us. So I think my DTD2 was probably average, and I can't tell you how many names are in it or were in it, but it was the game that they say to play, that if you have make 6 calls or have 6 clients, you get 1 referral. And I use that as a basis for my business.
What kind of shape was your business in, Kris?
I think as far as my database, it was pretty good. There were some people that I was missing phone numbers from. I got my business mainly from, a couple of things. I was in a program with a credit union that gave me referrals. And then also people that knew me, past clients. But I do, because of my senior focus, a fair amount of networking with senior service providers. So hospice, home health care, estate planning attorneys, all that kind of stuff. And they've given me a fair amount of business as well. So for some of those people, networking or whatever, I didn't have phone numbers, but they still I did like quarterly mailings and stuff like that and as well. So.
And I'm sure, there was some navigation to kind of moving into a team. I mean, what was that migration like for you both, going from solo agent to team member?
For me, it was I think we talked a little bit about yesterday. It was a good transition. I know that I made it more difficult because I was not willing to let go.
Right, we're a bunch of control people.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it, but I know for probably Laura and Jen at the time, because my mentality was, okay, I got the system down. I can do an offer in 20 minutes. And Katie's got a well-oiled machine with links and stuff that we do for offers. And by the time, because it was new to me, I would figure that out. It's like, doggone it, I could have just written the offer myself. But there's a purpose for that. So I finally had to have a talk with myself and say, either you're going to continue as a solo agent and be a control freak, or you're going to adapt to this well-oiled machine and let people do what they're supposed to do. And once I kind of had that talk with myself, and I don't know why I had trouble letting go. I've tried to analyze that. I don't have an answer for that. Maybe a little bit of, I want to join a team because I want to be able to travel and do all that stuff without the texts and the phone calls and all that kind of stuff. But I think there was a part of me too that liked the kind of, I don't know, busyness of real estate. And now 2 years later, I could care less about the busyness. I am perfectly fine. Put me out on a mountain trail with a book all day. I'm perfectly fine. So I think as I have gone through this transition, and for me, some things personally and spiritually have changed, that I'm moving more to my introvert side and more quiet in many ways. I've been able to do more as far as letting go, and Katie's been gracious enough to let me do what I do and take over the rest of it.
Cool. How about you, Whitney?
For me, the move made a lot more happen that I needed help. I did, if a client called and said, I would like to sell my home, then I would say, I'm not in the Twin Cities right now, but I have a great team who's supporting me. And Katie and I would either do a Zoom or do emails. And so I felt like I could always stay connected. And I didn't, I told you yesterday about all my clients have been very happy with Katie, and nobody has gone away except for one client that was Chinese and the husband didn't speak English. And when he realized that I couldn't be in the Twin Cities to show them property and they purchased from me before, he said, then we're going to go find a Chinese agent who speaks Chinese so I can understand. So in 3 years, well, 2.5, Katie has handled and taken care, and all my clients are very, very happy. So I think it's a win-win, even being further away.
It's really good. And I've talked to some agents who've said, it doesn't always happen though. I think you landed in a great place, and it doesn't always happen that way. So maybe the interview process is really important. Just take a sec. We didn't talk about this yesterday, but did you have any kind of criteria you were looking for, or were you like, I know her, I'm doing it? Which I understand that.
I think for me, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, is when I made the decision to join a team, it was really important to me to have someone that was going to be able to take over that senior business, to have the heart for it. And, a lot of times we're talking about hand signing listing paperwork. It's not this fast, send it over to e-sign. Okay, let's get going. Boom, 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 boom. It's a much different clientele. And a lot of times there's a lot of hand holding. It's a grieving process for the family. It's a grieving process for elderly people to move to senior living. So it takes a special kind of person, and Katie was it. So she's got the life experience and she's got the personality. So I think the biggest thing, regardless of what team you join, is you have to know that that person leading that team is the right fit for you.
and I had, when I started looking, I have a lot of faith-based clients that their faith is very important to them. And my initial searches were for agents that had that same ability or same thought, I thought. And when I sat and talked with Katy, what I discovered were that she has a spiritual part, but that her ethics, her care of my clients, and her motivation were the same things that were important to me and were the things that I wanted. My whole goal in finding a team was I wanted my clients to be taken care of. I didn't want to just walk away, which I could have done, and let them fall where they may. And I have very good friends who are clients. I have a godson who's a client, whose parents were clients, and I didn't want to just leave that. And so Katy's heart and her ethics and care ultimately is what I decided were the most important things in my heart and life. And she was that way as well, and it's proven out.
That's good. And I can imagine for some people, there might be other kinds of maybe it's political or maybe it's whatever, right? They want to make it fit that way.
So Whitney, can you think of one question that you asked the team leaders, or an important question when you were sitting and speaking and considering the team you would go on to?
That's twofold. One is because of being in Minneapolis, I saw how a lot of agents operated. And as much as we all work well together, we don't all want to be married to maybe some of those agents. And so that doesn't mean they can't be a friend or care, but some of it's internal. The other was that Katy and I talked about some of her clients, and that it was the most important thing was to help the client. And how that manifested sometimes is maybe some, I don't want to say anything to do with commissions, but there are ways that I saw Katy was helping clients that was very important to me on a special basis, because my heart was to help the client first. And I'm not money motivated. So I was volume motivated and units, but I wasn't money motivated.
Cool. So how long was it before you really felt like you were working less and retiring more, so to speak?
Well, for me, a lot of it was immediate because we up and moved. So
yeah, this is good for all the people who are moving, to Florida, Arizona, New Mexico, California, wherever to escape the snow. Right.
The piece I talked about yesterday, when we were discussing things, was, and I still struggle with it, is finding a set time to do the work that I want to do. I think maybe we all can be ADHD too. Oh, look, let's go outside. Oh, look, I can empty the dishwasher. I don't know. So my struggle a little bit still has been, and I'm renewing things again with Katy, is to just make the phone calls. Just do my DTD2 every week. And it doesn't take that long, and I block the time. I block the time for my volunteering. I just need to block the time and stay consistent with my calls.
So what does it look like, Whitney, when you get a call from one of your relationships and they say, it's time, we want to sell the house and we're ready to move on? What is the process like?
I start by just being saying I'm honored that they called and being really excited to talk to them and find out as much information as I can. And then I don't say I've retired. I just say I'm not in the Twin Cities full time and I've joined a team so that they can take care and help me with my clients. And everybody goes, cool. And depending upon the client, I say, I'll do an introduction to Katy via email with you. Or if it's one of my more needy clients, then I say, let's set up a Zoom so all three of us can talk and so we can all be on the same page. And I haven't had any trouble.
Fabulous. How about for you, Kris? What does it look like?
I think it probably took me about a year to really feel assimilated into the team, and that's on me. It's not on the team. Just because my unwillingness to let go and that kind of stuff. Everybody on the team was very welcoming and helping me as best as they could. For me, I've approached stuff a bit different. My goal, like I said, I consider myself part-time, but I'm probably part-time. So I don't lead generate in the sense of calls or anything like that. I'm trying to be a good team member this year and commit to Jen, our marketing coordinator, to do my DT, D2. And that's to help the team out so that they have the best database that they can have. But I don't lead generate other than I do some senior networking groups. And I do Katy and I have done a couple of, I don't know, what would you call them, events, senior events. And I do some public speaking where the team is, promoted as much as I can. So on caregiving, when I took care of my mom. So that's kind of how I operate. I don't have a set time. I don't sit down and do it. It's kind of like if Jen needs this, I'll do it. And I do the networking I want to do. And so I'm more pulled out of things in the formal real estate way than probably Whitney is. And that's just a difference in how we approach things.
So Kris, did you say Jen's doing DTD2 for you?
She sends us a list every week. So
Oh.
whatever the letters are, and she sends us this Excel spreadsheet and then asks us to fill in the information that they don't have.
Got it. I was going to say, I'm done. If Jen is that, I'm done. You got it. Anyway, no.
But to that
that's
point,
easier for some people than
Jen is very good at what she does.
Yeah.
She is exquisite at the marketing materials. So for me, everything, the newsletter, the other stuff that she does, the social media posting, she far exceeds anything I would ever done as an agent, just simply because I'm not super techie. And I don't care to be super techie. That's not important to me.
Yeah.
But she has this stuff down and nailed. So I don't really feel like I have to do that. Now I have a few people now on my list as I was going through stuff that I should call because I think they're probably getting to a point where they are ready to sell. So I will do that. So I do go through and identify people periodically, but I don't have a regular schedule to do it.
And what's it like when somebody calls you and says, hey, Kris, we want to sell that house. We're ready.
So initially I was hesitant to say I had gone to part-time. And then the next thing became, okay, so how do I explain Katy Bean team? And so it took me a while, and depending upon the client, but now I'm just like, I have scaled back. I'm focused mainly on my senior and elderly clients. I have joined an awesome team. We can help you with any kind of real estate. And I do the same as Whitney. We do a Zoom call with Katy or a listing appointment. Katy and I typically go out together. Once in a while, I'll go out initially, and then she'll come on a second appointment. But everybody's embraced the whole concept, and they're like, good for you. Go travel.
That's really great. Yeah. And so what are you doing and what are you not doing anymore? Right. So you're doing a little bit of phone calling, and what are you letting go of?
I'm letting go of and thank you, Katy, for this. I'm letting go of the up till midnight negotiating offers. I'm letting go of my phone has been on mute for the last 4 years, even when I was a solo agent, because the constant dinging and stuff, it's like, I don't know. And so I don't have to worry about any of that. I can go on vacation and I can check email. I cannot check email. I can check text. I cannot check text, because what I found, especially in the last couple of years as a solo agent, it's like every time you want to go on vacation, you can have 3 buyers and no showings. And I'll be doggone, the day before, all of them want to go see a house or an offer comes in on a listing. And so I'm free of that. You know, I can just do what I want to do and communicate with Katie and the team. I'm going to be gone like I am, you know, for 2 weeks now in a couple of days, and I don't have to worry about it. So I've let go of everything basically, except the things with my seniors and helping Jen with the D2 or whatever you call it.
So I want to know what pill you take to get there. That's what I wanna know.
I think, Pat, and this is probably something later, so cut me off, Jody, if you want, but I think to make this transition where it's a choice for me, you know, Whitney was less of a choice because they moved. But I think you have to be together financially. You have to be comfortable with where you're at financially. You've got to bring your team in, which is your financial advisor, your tax people, all that kind of stuff. And I think mentally and emotionally, you've got to have your head together about where you're at as a person and what you want out of life. And there's a lot of things staying in this a little bit that we talked about yesterday, and maybe you want to approach that later. There are benefits of staying in.
We can address that now.
Okay. So the one thing I found when I was doing some research is with my financial advisor, well, number one, I'm going to be, 68 in a few weeks. And so at 65, I could start collecting Social Security. Or I'm sorry, at 62, I could start collecting Social Security. But my full retirement age was 66 and a half. And once you reach full retirement age, then you can collect Social Security and have an unlimited income. So even if I made $500,000, I would still get my Social Security. But you have to hit that full retirement age. Secondly, the tax benefits that you have being self-employed, you know, writing off electricity, writing off gas, you know, all that kind of stuff have a big impact. And like Whitney said yesterday on the call, just one transaction usually pays for your MLS fees and your licensing. So even though your income, depending upon what you work out with whatever team you join, is cut back, you have a whole lot less expenses. You can get the tax write-offs. I can still contribute to my Roth as long as I do have any earnable income. So that's why I made the decision when I did, because I knew I could start collecting Social Security and not be penalized for my income.
Excellent. Excellent. You also, do you mind sharing what you did with your house?
What I did with what?
Your home.
In what sense?
In the mortgage.
Oh, so I decided as part of this process, I refinanced to reverse mortgage, which is something people can do over 62, which means I have no mortgage payments. And that helped immensely.
We did the same thing when we moved here. We did a reverse mortgage with, you know, there's a whole bunch of ways to do it, but we did the exact same thing. We bought a bigger house, and it fits us, and we don't have a house payment. And I can tell you, because everybody freaks out about the interest that's accruing, that in the last year, I think I looked at our year-end statement that the interest was like $6,000 or $7,000. Well, to me, that's not a big deal because we all know about appreciation of real estate. And if I hold the house for 10 years that's okay, 70,000. Well, you hope in 10 years the house is going to appreciate more than the $70,000. So it was a way that gave us a lot more freedom. And it's nice not to have to worry about a house payment.
Yeah. And you were saying it's like half the money, half the volume, half the income, but about a lot less expenses too. And right?
Yes, because, and having to worry about not so much the expenses, but I'd get geared up to do a newsletter and monthly emails. And then by the third month, I'd forgotten, oh no, it's now the 20th and not the 5th. And Jen does all of that for us. And I do still send out coffee cards if I get a referral, because I want everybody to know and be, to know I'm still in the business. And the same with thank yous when a deal closes. I have some gifts still that go out to the clients, and but thankfully I'm not having to buy and don't need to buy, wonderful Cutco closing gifts. No offense to Jeff. So and yeah, it just the gas mileage, even though I go back and forth to the Twin Cities once in a while, I'm not going through the gas of showing houses even.
So what makes it worth the gnarliness, right? You said that occurred to you after the fact that you wanted to share something about that.
One of the things,
making a transition, the gnarliness of making it, the hard work.
What was easier for me to focus on was the things that I was going to be able to do that I hadn't been able to do freely or as much in when I was full time, because when I'm in real estate, I'm 100% in, which means all the other things, even though we're supposed to be time wise, more of them go away. So it was like being excited about the new things rather than the fear of what I was leaving. And some of that is what Kris talked about, being financially, having a financial plan and a tax plan, so that there was less worry. For sure, it was an unknown what I was going to do. And yes, I've done half the business, which means half the income. But the income wasn't the focus. It was the change and doing positive things and being involved. I've been able to do glass work and some basket weaving and volunteer work, and still make my calls on usually Monday afternoon. It's been wonderful, and it's been positive and freeing.
Very nice. Kris, would you add anything to that?
I think basically it's similar to Whitney in the sense that I've reached a point where, I'm comfortable financially. I'm not wealthy by any means, but, with my years with the airlines, I was very blessed to be able to, they gave me 12% to my IRA when I was in management, which is huge.
Nice.
So I could make the transition, and as I got older, it was like, there's so many things I want to do. I mean, travel is one of them, but so many things that I want to get involved in and stuff. And I've been able to do that because I don't have the administrative part of real estate to worry about, because the team takes care of that. So I've been able to get involved in a senior organization, be on the board of directors, and another Go Crisis, which is an international disaster response team, and in my church and a bunch of other things. So, and I would not have been able to do that doing real estate full time. So I'm at a point where I'm pursuing what I love in life, including real estate. But it's not something that a full-time job is to anyone, whether it's real estate, that ties you down. There are certain things that you have to do when you're working full time, you know, or you're not going to have a business. It's pretty simple.
Okay, women, how long do you think you're going to continue in this mode?
Plug your ears, Katie.
Whoops, sorry, yeah, right?
What I said is for Minnesota, the licensing is a 2-year cycle. And so we're just started into a new year. So my goal is to see where I am at the time for renewing in 2 years.
I'll chime in real quick and say CE tends to be a determining factor for a lot of nobody enjoys those 15 hours. And yeah, that was exactly it with Jackie Brunsberg, who was on our team forever and such a fantastic team member. And she got to the point where that was it. She said, I'm not taking one more CE. It's time to hang up the license. So yes.
Thank you, Heartland. Inspections for free CE.
Yeah.
How about you, Kris?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe a year or two, and then I think Katie and I've had some kind of initial conversation, but I think maybe we'll have some more conversation about consulting or something like that and how that might look. So Katie's embraced the senior aspect of things. And there's a lot to learn in that area to really be effective. It's incredible. Trust, power of attorneys, just all this kind of stuff. So we'll see. But I would say a year or two, and we'll go from there.
That's great. So we're going to open it up to questions in a minute, but before we do, I'm looking at the questions that we covered yesterday. We haven't talked about. We talked a little bit about how you're doing calls to maintain contact. What does the team do to stay in touch with the people that your clients, your former clients, your sphere?
I know some of it. Katie can chime in too. There's a monthly newsletter that goes out via email. We do Thanksgiving or early Christmas card. We do 2 events. There's been in the past pumpkin one, and then a meet and greet. This last year was with a brew pub. They do monthly emails too. And I know that Jen keeps track if somebody is like looking through Command and looking at houses, then she'll send a quick note saying, these people have been on the search for something. You may want to reach out to them. So I know there's something else and I'm not thinking what it is.
Well, Jen does, which I would not be capable of, and I had hired someone to do this, but she was not as capable as Jen. She does phenomenal Instagram, social media, which is a way to reach people now. And that's, like I said before, that's not something I am good at, and it's not something I care to be good at. That's just where I'm at in life. So that in and of itself is just, you know, the value on that is just so important.
And your face is all over that, right? You're part of the whole picture.
Yeah.
Somebody could think you're still working it, right? I mean, full time. Right?
I said this yesterday. Were you done, Kris? Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said this yesterday that I've had two past clients come for a weekend, and one of them the other morning said, it's Saturday morning. Okay, do you have to go do some things in real estate? You know, we can leave you alone. And I'm going, little do you know. But I said, no, this Saturday, I'm okay. We can do stuff together for fun. But clients who become friends who come say, I don't want to interrupt you. Do you need to make calls or do you need to be doing something? And I'm going, perfect, because they see the social media, they see the cards, they see the emails. and they know I'm still doing real estate.
Right. Somebody said to me once that you can build into retirement, so, right, and thinking about, I said, oh, I'm never going to have a team. And they said, well, but, you can build into retirement through a team, right?
Yeah.
So I'm
Mhm.
still not going to have a team, but yeah, that's sort of what is happening here. That's exactly what's happening here. Pat?
Well, I'm fascinated by this because I just did my transition in September where I merged, I had a team and I merged my team with the Thomas Kennedy team. And I did more or less what you did, Whitney. I kind of secretly stalked agents and saw their work ethic and how they dealt with people. And what I will tell you there, it was a hard choice because there are some really talented people out there. And I narrowed it down to a person who really is similar to what I do, and that would be Tom Kennedy. And this is a silly, now, you did not bring over an assistant, correct? You went with the personnel on Katie's team. Okay,
Yes.
well, I brought my assistant with me. And the one day, which was so silly, and I had no problem giving up, turning into a vice president instead of being the rainmaker. Had absolutely no, I felt like the two of you, I felt liberated. But one day I heard Wendy talking to Tom and they were giggling and they had a private joke. And I thought, wow, I'm almost jealous. And that cracked me up, that the business side, the money side, I had that all in order, but the personal side, I needed to, look at and revamp. And, it is, Wendy and I are as close as ever, but that was the reaction I had in my brain. Just wanted to share that. Is there anything when a person is considering doing this, what would be the biggest piece of advice or even a small piece of advice that you would share?
I would maybe ask somebody else who's come on the team with the same similar goals, how it was going and how they were accepted and how the transition went. Because to me, that was one of the concerns I had with the other team, is that they really hadn't added someone like myself. That was one of the other concerns. And so I would have been blazing a trail that wasn't, they were a small team, but I coming in the way I wanted to, I would have been blazing a trail. And that was a concern in the back of my head. And Katie had already done it, and I'd seen how it was working. And so that, I mean, I guess that's the things I would ask, or I would have somebody think about.
Chris, do you have anything that you would add?
Yeah, I think the person leading the team has to be in line with what where your head's at, your values, what you want to see moving forward. And they have to be able to incorporate people like Whitney and I that are part-time. I can help out some as far as showings that need be or different things, if Katie or Henry or, whoever is out of town, and I'm more than happy to do that. But I don't know of very many teams that would take you on kind of part-time and wanting to be as removed from things, as we are. So I think it's one thing to join a team. I think it's one thing to join part-time. and how that plays out and what's expected of you. So I just think that all has to be in line with you. And I know there's some teams that I would not have joined, and it's nothing about those people or about the team or whatever. They just were not a fit for me because of what their focus is. I don't know if that
Yep.
makes sense, but
Oh, it does. Katie, can I ask you a question? Not to put you on the spot, but these young ladies here, what do they bring to your team?
Oh my gosh. Gee, where do I start? Well, I think both of them touched on something to begin with, which is just commonality of why we do what we do and what brings us joy in this business, right? Like I think partnerships like this are, I think it almost has to be friendship based in a sense to begin with. Like you like each other, right? You want to be with each other, you want to support each other's business, you want to see success for everybody. What they have brought has been, I mean, a wealth of information. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I mean, first of all, I just like them. And we knew each other for many, many years before we joined forces. So that's fun. We already knew each other, right? So it wasn't a, you know, interview from the start. There was also that just that mutual respect already, being colleagues. What I particularly enjoy though is not only their energy and ideas and positivity, but again, the experience. Granted, new agents can have good ideas and stuff like that, but there's a part of really succeeding in real estate that you get from experience, having had your hands and feet in all these transactions. And they both bring that to the table, right? You know, hands down. Kris, especially with the senior segment of stuff. Nobody, I will argue it all day. I don't think anybody else knows as much about the senior segment of real estate than Kris does. She is a go-to and a wealth of knowledge that I just soak up. I mean, I just am, whatever I can learn, and the people that she's introduced me to in this world have been phenomenal. But she built that, right? That didn't just land in her lap. She went out and sought the type of business that really spoke to her. And I've been so grateful to be, you know, brought along and taught that business as well. So, I mean, it's multifaceted. The reason this works is because we all work well together, right?
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
So, folks, other folks on the call, if you have some questions, just unmute yourself or raise your hand.
I'm on the other end of the stick. I mean, there might be a couple other people on here, Allie, that are not leaving, and I'm solo agent, and I joined the call to hear what the other gals have said. I know I've been seeing what they've been doing, and I think it's great that it's working well. But what if you're someone like me who wants to speak to another solo agent that's like, hey, I want less, and I don't even know how to go about that. So that's my question. What advice do you have for me? I'm on the other end, growing, and still out here working, and I really don't plan to have a team, but I leverage a lot of things, and that is valuable to me and works for me.
So Rachel, correct? Rachel, if
Yes.
your question is, how do you find a Whitney or how do you find a Kris?
so is the
Yeah,
question,
there's people leaving the business or wanting to. So as a solo agent, what kind of questions would I be asking people, or who would I be looking to link up with, right? What would be important to know? I think you've all
Excellent
mentioned-
question. Excellent.
Yeah.
so the question is, because at least on my screen, you're breaking up a little bit. So is your question on if you wanted to join a team with thoughts of cutting back, how should you approach that, or no?
No, I don't plan to join a team or have a team. I'm a solo agent looking for another agent who may be transitioning some business.
Yeah.
Having me take that on.
I think that's an important question, because there are people, you know, even though this year's going to get better, you know, last year was challenging for a lot of folks because the number of sales is down, right? And, it's going to get better this year, but there are always people dropping out of the business, right? And it might not be due to retirement. And so I think understanding what that process is, right, of how you can say, here's what you do with your license, you know, and here's how we'll work together, right?
Rachel, I think if I had stayed in Minnesota, that's where I was. That was some of the things I was trying, like finding an agent because I was going to take a trip and I didn't want to spend the time on the trip answering and trying to write offers from France. So it is hard. It's hard. Some of it, I think we can delegate with like transaction coordinators. And I know there are people who do marketing. So what I was trying to do before I knew I was moving was try to take off bits and pieces of it that I could willingly let go of. The hardest part is, like you say, finding an agent who can be you when you're wanting to travel or when you're wanting to do something with kids or family, because we all want to still have a life. And it's hard. I guess look for an agent that has the same ethics standard or the same way that they treat their clients, and maybe talk about sharing that way, having been able to pass off some of the things that, so you're not worrying as much. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
I'm looking for an agent who wants to transition some business to me. That's the you know, how do you do that? I guess you just have to have conversation with people, get to know agents, and look for people who are a match. I mean, that's what I've heard you guys say works for you. Someone that has your style and that you know, like, and trust, right? So, yeah. Thank you.
Is there another question? We're almost out of time. I'm looking. We really are.
One thing Kris has said, and I've not ever used the words, I don't say part-time. I don't know why. I'm still selling real estate. It's just different degrees of it. And maybe that's slicing hairs or whatever you say, but I'm still a real estate agent. So it's because I think part-time, when I hear part-time, it makes me a little afraid, because we all have worked with part-time agents that we never want to work with again. So not counting us. So I still am selling real estate, and I just say I'm not in the Twin Cities all that frequently. I don't say I'm part-time, and I think for where did she just go? Rachel, you're over in the corner now. That you don't want part-time, you want somebody to work with. And I think part-time's a scary word in real estate to me.
You know, one thing I would love to add in, like what we call kind of this role on our team is a flex agent. It's not part-time, it's not retiring, it's an agent that wants to work with flexibility, right?
That's great.
One of the things
that Kris takes on and works full-time, right? That's her client, and other times we'll be there to support. So really what it is for us is just a role with all the flexibility that somebody would need. And it comes and goes, right?
Well, and one of the things we haven't talked about is I still do a lot of referrals in my travels and with people I know all over the country. I have people in Boise who I referred to California, and I have people in Minnesota who I referred to Florida. So I'm still, it doesn't matter where I'm living and even when I'm traveling, I can meet agents and see agents and help people find real estate for whatever it's for, retirement or for a second home or first home someplace else.
Vicky, what last comment, Vicky, or question?
Yeah, it kind of, so it seems like, excuse me, It seems like, Katy, you have the flexibility within your group that that people can sort of approach it from different ways, and you seem to be able to let get that worked out within your team. Is that correct? Because it seems like Whitney and Kris have pretty different approaches to how they're managing this.
Yeah, we have. I mean, here's the thing. I always say this, right? Think about not every buyer and seller fits into a box, and I don't believe every agent fits into a box,
Yeah.
nor every situation, right?
Mhm.
So that's where I feel like we always have to be in conversation and flexible. And within the team, it's worked incredibly well. And it's more not so much what does this agent need maybe, but what does this client need? Right? A specific client might need Whitney involved more than another client. And a certain client might be a really good match for me, or a certain client might be a really good match for Henry to work with, right? So we tailor it, I would say more, maybe you guys chime in if you think more to the client than to the agent, if that makes sense. And as a byproduct of that, it's flexible for the agent.
Sure.
And let me step in here, and I know we're over, and I apologize for that. But Katy and I just had a situation where I had a couple of people from church that, were interested in having the team help them. And Katy always keeps us in the loop, whether it's text, whether it's emails, we always know what's going on. We can jump in at any time. But with this particular person, I mean, they were two people that were going to sell and buy, move just to a different style of living. And Henry was great for one of the couples, but with another couple that Katy's currently working with, because of the personality and her demeanor. And I love Henry. Henry's a great guy. Nothing, it's just different personalities require different things. Like Katy's saying, sometimes it's Whitney and I jumping in more. Sometimes this is, it's like for any of us. Not every client is for every person. So Katy's having to work with these people because of circumstances, and Henry can pick up another one. But the team is very fluid that way. It's not egos. It's like, what is best for the client? And I'm not the best fit for everyone. Whitney's not the best fit for everyone. It is what it is. And we have that capability on our team to say that, and nobody's offended, nobody's upset. It's just like, yeah, cool. Let's go.
That's great. And I think, so I think we're going to wrap it up. And, the point at the end here was raised that, you can go into a team, or you might just run into somebody who's leaving. So maybe we can follow up with like, here, do this, do this, do this, so you have a script or something. If you're somebody like Rachel or Jen or, who's going to be in the business for decades longer, right? To just help them, because we're always running into people who are leaving, and it's like, but wait, because maybe they'll come back or something. Anyway, thank you, Kris and Whitney. You guys are amazing gals, women, go women. And thank you, Pat, and everybody for joining. Yes. We're gonna send a link to the recording and follow up, right? And Whitney and Kris have also agreed to share their contact info. We'll put that into the email with the link as well, in case you want to follow up with them. So,
okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay,
It's great to see everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
And thank you too, Katy.